And I know that Nancy, you just asked a question, if we can see you on there, and I can see you as a panelist on here as well. We just couldn't hear you. So for our process, for our board officer elections and election process, we will be electing a chair and vice chair for the upcoming year. And so I will, as the incumbent chair, I will preside over the meeting until both elections have been completed and the new officers will assume their duties. So we will have two separate elections, one for the board chair and one for the vice chair position. We will do our chair first, followed by the vice chair. So now I am going to open the floor for nominations. And as a reminder, our nominations do not require a second.
I would like to nominate Mark Watson to be our chair.
Thank you, Shan. Are there any further nominations? Okay, I would like to acknowledge that Director Sheehan Kim has nominated Mark Watson for the chair position. And there are no other nominations. So I am asking for a motion to close the nomination.
I move to close the nominations for board chair.
This one does require a second, so I do need a second on this motion.
Second.
So it has been moved by Director Martinez and seconded by Director Watson to close the nominations. That motion carries. And now we will have each board member do a roll call, Rose, for votes.
Lisa Allen. I can see your list.
Sorry, this is why I haven't been able to make motions. Things are slow. Aye. Yeah.
Sheehan Kim.
Yes, vote for Mark.
Erica Lopez.
Yes.
Yadira Martinez.
Yes.
Nancy Thomas. If you can't, just give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Or
Rose,
text
she
me your
posted
vote.
it. She posted it in the chat.
Perfect. Okay, Monique Ward,
Yes.
Mark Watson.
Watson votes aye. Thank you.
Watson votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. The motion carries. And now we will move on to our second position that we have for vice chair. And I will open at this time the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I would like to nominate Nancy Thomas for the position of vice chair.
Okay. Director Mark Watson has nominated Nancy Thomas for the position of vice chair. Are there any other nominations?
I move that we close the nominations for vice chair.
Second.
So it has been moved by Mark Watson and seconded by Yadira Martinez to close the nominations. All those in favor, please signal your vote. Rose, can you do roll call?
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas, Monique Ward,
Aye.
Mark Watson,
Watson votes aye.
and Nancy did vote aye.
The motion carries. Thank you. And I think, Rose, am I correct? Like this was just a process for the nomination, but we have to have another additional vote now that we have both sets nominated, right?
Yes, we did it a little bit out of order. We would have voted for the chair first and then started this process for vice chair, but that's okay. We can now close the nominations and, or sorry, we've closed the nominations. Now we can just vote on the seats.
The seats. Awesome. Thank you, Rose. So now I will, we're basically gonna just call for a motion.
And a motion to elect.
That's correct.
I move that the board elect Mark Watson as chair.
I'll second.
So it has been moved by Lisa Allen and seconded by Adira Martinez to elect Mark Watson as the chair of the Hillsboro School Board. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Rose, can you make a roll call?
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas voted aye. Monique Ward. I can see your lips. Mark Watson.
Watson votes aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The motion carries. Congratulations, Mark. Next is for our vice chair. I will need a motion as well.
I move to elect Nancy Thomas as our vice chair.
Second.
So it has been moved by Mark Watson and seconded by Sheehan Kim. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call.
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas. Is that the, yes, great, thank you. Voted aye. Monique Ward,
Aye.
thank you. Mark Watson,
Watson votes aye.
thank you all.
Thank you. The motion carries. Congratulations, Nancy. And now, since we have a new board chair, I will hand off the rest of the meeting to Mark.
If we were in person, we'd switch spots.
Yes.
I can only hope that there's a training session that comes with how to use that panel that's in front of you. I've never actually gone over there and looked at it, but I'm hoping there's a training session on how to use the panel and see who wants to talk when. Because I believe we'll be in person soon enough, which is exciting and great. Looking forward to that. I think we probably could have been in person today, but since it's sort of out of the ordinary for us to have a July meeting, I think this works great. The next item on our agenda is a fall update with Mike and Travis.
All right, thank you. First of all, yes, I'm looking forward to the time. Really moving forward from here on out, we will be able to meet in person. So really looking forward to that. Two quick things before I dive into the agenda item. First of all, a thank you to Erica. You've done such an incredible job as the board chair during challenging times, shall we say. So Erica, thank you for your leadership. We have appreciated everything that you brought to the table, the values that you've included in our work, and just everything that you've done. We appreciate you. Thank you. Also, I'd like to welcome our new folks. We've got Kaylee who's here. We've got Seth. We've got Monique and we've got Nancy. Welcome to your first official meeting. We look forward to getting to know you better, meeting you in person, and doing some great work this year. So welcome to all of you. All right. As we move forward, you likely are aware that we received some draft guidance in June that began to spell out some of the recommendations that are going to be in place as we return to school in the fall. And we received that guidance on June 25th. We do know that we are going to be receiving additional information. On July 22nd, we will receive the final version of the guidance from the Oregon Department of Education. We believe that it's going to be very similar to the draft that we received, but we also know that there's some work being done in the background that may add greater specifics to the framework that we have received. So tonight, we're just going to be giving you an initial update. Please don't think that we're going to be providing all of the details tonight, because that isn't the case. We're waiting for additional information, like I mentioned before. There's still work to be done once we receive that information. Tonight is, more than anything, it's meant to provide you with the information that we're currently aware of, as well as to confirm the process that we would use as we put our operational plan into place for the fall. So just as a review, we're going to be providing you with the process. We're going to give you the information that we currently have. No decisions need to be made this evening, though. So wanted to just kind of set the stage for that. So if you'll advance the slide, you'll see our agenda for the evening includes discuss the process that we're going to be using. We want to share some highlights from the Ready School Safe Learners guidance that we already have received. And we want to share with you some likely elements of the Hillsboro School District Plan. We are waiting on July 22nd. We will be receiving the blueprint, what needs to be required in our blueprint, but we can guess some of those that are going to be in there. We want to start sharing some of that information with you. We want to also share additional information that we've received from Washington County Public Health, as well as some of the information that's coming out from the Center for Disease Control. So we'll be sharing that as well. And then of course, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions and for us to have a discussion, and we'll go from there. So on the next slide, this is really, I think, the most important information that we're going to cover this evening. And that is the process that we want to put in place as we put together a plan for fall 2021. And so I'm just going to run through these bullet points for you. And the first thing that we will do is we'll continue to consult with Washington County Public Health. The information that comes forward from Washington County Public Health, those are going to be recommendations. And we've received a letter, which you actually have a link to in this presentation, so you can take a look at that. We next would consider the latest information from the Center for Disease Control. CDC recently came out with some information, and it sounds like there's going to be more specifics coming in the very near future on that. We of course need to consider the Ready School Safe Learners guidance that's anticipated for July 22nd. That will go into the decision. And then once we have all of those things, we'll be able to prepare a recommendation for the school board. The recommendation will come to you on August 3rd, which is our next board meeting, and we'll be in person at that time. It is a retreat, but we'll set aside, our plan at this point is to set aside considerable time at the end of the day where we can go through this guidance in a very deliberate manner and get some information and some feedback from you. Once we have the opportunity to do that, we can move forward with communicating that to the community in a broader way, as well as submit the operational plan to ODE. So as you see this process here, what are your thoughts? And is this a process that's going to work for you? What are your thoughts on this?
Anybody? Just raise your hand, or just, yeah. Seth, what do you think? Lisa, first Seth, then Lisa.
I know that this is still very far away, but I'm curious if it's already being considered or if we're waiting to come up on it. How we're planning to communicate to students and to families, what kind of documents we're considering providing, if we're talking about how we're going to condense stuff, or if that's just too far in the future for us to be looking at.
It is a little far in the future yet, but what we typically do is, and one of our goals last year was to communicate more directly with students as well, especially at the secondary level. And so we will continue that trend as we move into next year. What typically happens when we have information like this that's going to impact the entire district is we use all of our typical communication pathways. So that includes a text that goes out to people, that includes an email. On something like this, we will likely have something that goes out in snail mail as well. So just a letter that shows up at everybody's house. So those are the typical channels. The other thing that we do is we do get the information out to our administrators first. And we know that our principals will get a lot of questions. And so we prepare them with the information necessary so they can also use their communication channels. And those would include a summer letter that goes out. Those would include the weekly newsletters and emails that go out. So, except those are typically the pathways that we use.
Lisa, then Yadira, then Erica.
My question is, we are discussing and providing input on August 3rd. Is there a point where the board will be asked to take action, or are we simply advising on the plan?
We've had some conversation with this. I had a conversation with Erica and Mark earlier today, and we believe that most districts around us are going to have a process that has the board be advisory in nature. So that is what we've done in the past as we've gone through this last year as well. And so right now, the process calls for the board to be advisory in nature. Of course, the August 3rd date would be key time for us to hear feedback from the board and to make any adjustments that are necessary. So right now, it's advisory in nature. But that's why we're having this conversation as well.
And I would just like to supplement that, sorry, dear, right before you go, with the sort of, for people who might be unfamiliar with the concept of what's board work and what's not board work, it's fairly common in all of the school boards in Oregon for the school board not to be involved in day-to-day operations. And I would suggest that the plan is day-to-day operations and that the administration will bring it to us and seek our approval. I also understand that this is not normal times. So I expect us to have, maybe a little more input over general operations than we may normally have, but the role of the board is for governance and policy and is not to, stand at the door and do temperature checks or be involved in day-to-day operations. So to me, what Mike just presented makes sense for us to use as our path. And what we're discussing now is sort of not any particular nuance of any particular piece of the plan. It's, do we like the sort of timeline and how things are laid out here for how we're intending to make progress over the next month or so. So Yadira, then Erica.
So my questions are, there's a lot of different entities in this, like Washington County Center for Disease Control, Oregon Department of Education, probably the OHA, all with recommendations. And so which ones do we go with? What if they're conflicting? Which ones are recommended? Which ones are requirements? I guess it just depends on what each of them presents and how which ones we will implement. Basically, is there a plan for that?
There is, and thank you. That is something that we have discussed quite a bit. So one of the things that is clear, even though there are differences and definite nuances in the guidance that comes forth from various entities, we are finding that there's several commonalities. For example, if you looked at Washington County Public Health and you looked at CDC, some of the things that they have in common is that they would recommend that people wear masks in those environments where there has not been the opportunity for vaccination. So, for example, below the age of 12, there's not been the opportunity for vaccinations, and there would be a recommendation to wear a mask. The other would be it's not necessary, or there's not a recommendation to wear a mask in most cases when people are outdoors. Another would be that for those in an environment where students for those people that have been vaccinated, there would not be the need to wear a mask. So what I anticipate here is that we will look at the commonalities that exist between the various entities, and that will be the basis by which we start to build our plan.
Erica?
Yeah, so the question that I had was on the July 22nd, a couple questions. One, is that going to be the last update that we receive before our September start date?
Yes, we've been told that by July 22nd, we will have the final update by which we can begin to plan for the fall. Because we think that so many of the elements that are in the existing draft plan are going to be similar, we are of course beginning that planning immediately. But yes, July 22nd is anticipated to be the last guidance we receive before fall.
So that was kind of my follow-up question, was if we would have built out our plan far enough that by that turnaround of August 3rd to present to us, that would be really the most accurate plan and up to date of what will happen in the fall.
That's correct. We believe that we will be ready to provide a complete plan by August 3rd.
And then my last question was around the guidance that's going to be provided by Ready Safe School Learners on July 22nd. Are the other entities that are mentioned on here, have they stated that there was going to be additional either guidance or when is our consultation with Washington County Public Health happening?
We've had the opportunity to meet with Washington County Public Health fairly regularly over the last several months. And we did receive a letter from Washington County Public Health yesterday, I believe. And there's a link for that in your presentation as well that really lines out what their recommendations are at this point. So we don't believe there's going to be any further recommendations, but say for example, CDC comes out with something additional, there could be some adjustment there, but we don't believe that's likely going to be the case. CDC recently updated their recommendations as well, and we're each day gaining more specifics on that as we go. So we believe we're going to have all of the necessary information by July 22nd.
Thanks, Mike. I think the only additional piece that I had was around just our, I guess Seth alluded to our communication strategy regarding what's going to be happening in the fall. But prior to that, I think just around the process, I think a lot of people are very anxious to know what our direction is going to be. And right now we're waiting for more guidance to formalize our plan, so that for people that are in our audience and have been wondering what is the process that the HSD is going to be having, or the decision that we're arriving of what fall will look like, needs to wait until we get those final that final guidance.
So are you suggesting that we put out information immediately that says stay tuned, that it will be early August when we have our final plan?
I think that once we have this conversation here with our group and we all agree about what our role is and what the process, it would be great to have some information out to the public so they know when to expect that final plan from HSD coming out. And it looks like around August 6th is our communication date.
All right, thank you.
Nancy included a question in the chat that usually priority goes federal, state, local. So will we have help summarizing and comparing all of the recommendations?
We do have the opportunity to talk with Oregon School Board, COSA, who usually does a very thorough analysis of this. We also are in conversation with other districts across the state. I don't know if we'll be receiving any additional information, that really summarizes where all the commonalities are and that kind of thing. And the reason I believe that is because I think it's pretty clear in the Ready School Safe Learners guidance that's recently come out that there's local decision making involved here. And so I don't anticipate that coming forward.
Monique, and then I will remind everybody we have 7 more slides or 8 more slides to go, and we'll probably have opportunities to ask questions again. So this won't be our final opportunity to ask questions, and there is more information coming. Monique, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, with all of this guidance, is there going to be some scientific information provided as well to back up the decisions that are being made?
So when we receive information from, say, the Center for Disease Control, as well as Oregon Department of Education, that has been vetted through a variety of different health experts. And so we really rely on that. If your question is Hillsboro going to vet their own science? We would not do that. We would rely on the health experts within the state as well as federally to guide our decision making.
Lisa, you want to ask another question?
I had one last comment, and that is, I definitely, if everyone's on board with this process, then I will support it. But I wanted to just put out there that I would be open to us taking action as a board, as opposed to just advising. This is kind of a controversial, this fall 2021 reopening is controversial in our community. I think that in situations like that, in the past, the board has taken action in order to kind of either hold up or make a stand. And since it is something that's more controversial, I could see us doing that, and I would be in support of doing that if others wanted to. And if not, then I will support this plan and simply advise, and that's fine.
If no one else has any more pressing questions, Mike, can we proceed for our next slides?
All right, thank you. You'll go ahead and advance one, please. All right, as I mentioned before, we do have on June 25th, we received the additional or the draft guidance for RSSL, and you do have a link there. We'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, and I'll just give you a few of the takeaways that you should be aware of. So all along, we have been looking to have students return to all day, every day when we return in the fall. And we, of course, are not backing away from that. That is something that we value in a big way. And we believe with the guidance that is currently coming forward, we will be able to pull that off. Another takeaway from this guidance is that there's, from community to community across the state of Oregon, there's definitely uniqueness. And I don't think we should be surprised when we see different communities making different choices about what this looks like. We've seen that over and over again over the last several months, and I think we will definitely continue to see that. All right, so again, and I think I already mentioned the guidance now is transitioning to advisory in nature, and so relying on local entities to make these decisions. All right, let's go ahead and advance one. All right, we've also got some of the, just again, the local collaboration. I've kind of already mentioned this. The local collaboration that is recommended in this guidance is, it's just a pattern throughout this entire thing. So what does that look like when it comes to putting together our operational plan? It is really involvement with our local health authorities, of course, the state authorities, and we as well are including CDC as we look at our decisions. So you can see some of the things that are required in this, as well as some of the quarantining or excluding students that have tested positive. That will be in our operational plan. One of the things that we're looking forward to on July 22nd is the specifics for that operational plan that will be required. The good news is our last operational plan, and Travis is going to take it from here, but our last operational plan was so thorough and so detailed that we believe that we will have a number of the elements already well thought out as we receive this new guidance. All right, if you'll go ahead and advance one, and then Travis.
Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll jump into the details here for a few slides just to show you what we're looking at and preparing for and anticipating when we come out with the new guidance and the new operational plan template. So what will be new is that we'll be required to submit to ODE an operational plan. And we'll also have to outline some of the things that we're doing to accelerate learning, which the board has heard about so far, and what are the services we'll provide to students and staff post-pandemic. And we'll also fall back to pre-pandemic requirements. So what's our communicable disease plan, isolation spaces for folks who have infection, what are our instructional time and instructional materials obligations, and state assessment and attendance and enrollment as described in Division 22. So as you know, each year we put in our compliance with Division 22 requirements. And these are all elements that will be back to normal, quote unquote. Jordan, please advance one. So this is a new reminder slide that was published in the guidance in June, that vaccination is the most important tool, encouraging everyone to continue with all these mitigation strategies. No one of these can keep everyone safe, but these together are the strategies that we'll continue to employ in schools per the guidance. You can read that for yourself. This is nothing new. And like Mike mentioned, we'll roll forward a lot of the mitigation strategies that we have in our original operational blueprint to our new operational plan. Go ahead, one more, Jordan. So these are highlights from the RSSL resiliency framework. Districts plans should center in educational equity. District plans should center on mental health, social emotional learning, racial justice, and strengths-based and culturally responsive practices. The guidance also tells us that coming on July 22nd will be an operational plan template for 2021-2022. It'll be like the operational blueprint, but smaller. It will also suffice to meet the requirements of ESSER 3. And so as we spend federal dollars, our plan will include the requirements we're meeting to do that responsibly. We haven't seen this blueprint yet, so this is why our timeline includes a fuller report on August 3rd. And then it did announce the return to OARs that govern schools in normal times, including our obligations for safety and disease planning and all the instructional attendance and enrollment requirements of Division 22. Keep going, one more slide, please, Jordan. If you read the letter in its entirety, there's a link to it that came out yesterday or Tuesday, what is today? Recently from Washington County. Highlights of it are that the continuation of mandatory face coverings for schools serving children under 12, for the reason that Mike outlined earlier, that the students in that space will not have had the opportunity until later for vaccinations. Mandatory face coverings for unvaccinated students and staff for schools serving children 2 and up. That would be our secondary schools. Optional face coverings when outdoors. We've already implemented this in our summer programs. Create an environment where anyone who wishes to wear a face covering to further reduce risk of COVID-19 or other respiratory illnesses feels supported in continuing to do so. We want folks to be able to wear masks when they feel safer doing so. Click one more forward, please. So this would be highlights from the latest from last Friday from the CDC, and there's a link there if you want to read that as well. Masks should be worn indoors by all individuals ages 2 and older who are not fully vaccinated. This guidance is likely to remain in place until a vaccine is available. We're hoping late fall. The CDC is hoping late fall. Mask wearing at recess or for most other outdoor activities is not necessary. Vaccinated teachers and students do not need to wear masks indoors. Schools are not advised on how or if to track who is vaccinated. And 3 feet of spacing between students is still advised, but should not hinder the return to school. So we're being advised by the CDC to bring students back to school in the fall and attempt to keep 3 feet of space between students, but that shouldn't be a reason to not allow students to come back inside the school facility. So I'll pass it back to Mike to just go over at a high level the elements of what our plan would include.
Some of this has already been mentioned, but let me just hit those elements that are pretty clear going to be involved in the plan. One of the things that we're doing now is working to provide families with access to vaccinations. So we actually have some staff members who we're calling family health navigators that are assisting families in getting vaccinations. And we anticipate that as we move into the timeline where students younger than the age of 12 will have the opportunity for vaccinations, that there'll be an even greater opportunity for them. But that is work that we continue to do. We continue to place value on community members getting vaccines, so we are making that available. 3 feet of physical distancing wherever possible is something that we will continue to abide by. Of course, all of the hygiene protocols that were listed in the slide from ODE, whether it's hand washing or the hygiene lessons, those are the types of things that we will continue. continue to provide adequate airflow and circulation. We're very fortunate that we have had significant bond work done in that area, and we are meeting the requirements there. Cohorting students whenever possible. Keeping students together as much as possible. That is more likely at the elementary level than it is the secondary level. The number of courses that are required at the secondary level and the manner in which master schedules are put together, those really require that students are involved in a number of cohorts as opposed to just one. Cleaning protocols, especially those high touch areas, those types of things, we've got good plans in place for that, and we'll continue with that. And of course, we'll continue to have conversations with Washington County when it comes to determining what those health protocols are, especially around areas of when it's necessary to quarantine, the contact tracing, those types of things. We'll continue to do that as well. So those are some of the elements of that certainly will be included in our plan. We will know exactly what's required of the operational plan on July 22nd, but that's really the information that we had to share with you here this evening, and would welcome any questions or discussion that you might have.
Anyone want to lead the way with questions? Raise your hand, or if I can see, use your hand raise icon, or if I can find you. Everyone's already said what they need to say. I'll ask a question then. In previous discussions with Washington County Public Health, they were indicating, this may have been during the height of one of the surges, but that we were kind of, that contact tracing in a school was going to be more our responsibility than theirs based on the workload. Do we know if that situation has changed? If we have an outbreak at a school, do we know if Washington County Health has the capacity to assist us with identifying a source and figuring out what students to protect?
Yeah, we met with them on Monday, Mark, and they indicated that they'll continue to lean on us for primary contact tracing responsibilities. The county has said that they just don't have the capacity and the staffing to track it down as fast as we do. And so we're planning on continuing that this fall.
Nancy asked a question in the chat. So will we refuse students under 12 that do not wear masks? I think that my perception is that question is getting ahead of us a little. No decisions have been made. So refuse, accept, any of those kinds of things. I don't think any of those decisions have been made yet, but I'll just repeat your question. So will we refuse students under 12 that do not wear masks?
You're right. Those decisions have not been worked out yet. There's still a number of things that are in flux. That would be one of those. We are working to, we're in conversation with a number of different school districts as well as ODE. We'll continue to have that discussion. That is not worked out yet. Quarantining would be another thing that there's just not the level of detail around just yet, as well as cohorting. So there's a number of elements of the plan that we are still needing to work on. We just haven't received all of the information we need yet in order to make some of those decisions.
Before I return to Nancy has another question in the chat. Before I return to that, does anybody else have a question before Nancy has a second go? Anybody? Seth.
I know we're still looking at granular things, but I remember when you were talking about the CDC, they said they didn't have guidance on how or if schools should be tracking vaccinations. Do any of the other sources we're looking at have guidance for that yet, or are we going to be left to do that on our own?
We will be left to do that on our own, and that will go with towards that trend of the local decision making.
Nancy's additional question, supplementary question was, do we have details on the protocol for potential exposure by student, ? And then by school?
Yeah, we do. And Nancy, that's a good question. We have continued the protocols that we used last year through summer school. And so to date, what we do is we notify with lower level, like knowledge that a student was on campus and later tested positive, we'll send a notification to the cohort. And then if there are multiple cases, we work with the county to quickly quarantine a cohort. So there's sort of two phases. One is a heads up to families, and the other is we're taking action to limit exposure at school.
Thank you, Travis. Anybody else have any other questions? I have to get used to this like going last thing. It's going to be difficult for me. I know. Lisa remembers this transition. It's my first day. I think all right. So nobody else has anything. I would like to just add that, you know, most generally, I appreciate that the CDC guidance prioritizes all day, every day. That whatever we need to do to ensure that students are in school all day, every day, that's what takes the priority. 3 feet is suggested, but if you can't do it, get students back in classroom. So, you know, I appreciate that very much from the CDC guidance. I would also say I appreciate the lens that they put on that not every community in the United States is the same, and that it's our responsibility to use the local lens and the, you know, apply local parameters to the decision making. So, you know, I appreciate that the CDC has left flexibility in their guidance to allow for variability between communities, between districts, between counties, between everything. So, you know, that seems very important to me. I'll stop since Kaylee has her hand up. Kaylee?
Yeah, so I have a question and a comment. So I'll start off with my comment. So my comment is that I do work at the summer school, and I've been seeing a lot that it's actually going very well with all the guidelines that we have. And I think that it's very controlled at summer school. But I am a little concerned because summer school is smaller. Although this year we do have more students, summer school is a smaller program. And when we return to schools, how would that really work? Like, how would you guys kind of control that? Because having more students and having more teachers in classrooms, it might get a little like crazier.
Yeah, you're right. There will be some challenges that come with that. It is going to be on us to put together communication and training for our staff that will allow us to have a uniform implementation across the district. So one of the reasons that we are so anxious to get this information on July 22nd, as well as to have that conversation with the board and then move forward, is it allows us time to do training with our administrative staff, and they in turn to provide training to their entire staff at their schools. So we do believe with specific protocols and with good communication and a professional development plan that addresses the various elements, that we will be able to get a uniform implementation across the district.
And Kaylee, I just want to chime in. I appreciate you bringing that up and you working at our summer program. When you're over there, you might not know that there are 1,200 students at Witch Hazel and South Meadows. And so that is a successful and large operation. And I'm with you that it feels safe and orderly, and the kids are doing a great job, you know, keeping masks on and being distanced to the degree possible. So thanks again for that comment.
Yadira, you have a question?
Yeah. So regarding the quarantine, have we updated, because I think if I'm correct, you don't have to quarantine if you don't have symptoms and you've been fully vaccinated. So have those been like updated on our end, or are we different?
Yeah, Yadira, that's a great comment. The county did report on Monday that the recommendation is to not require people to be quarantined who are vaccinated. And so that becomes a layer of our communication when it comes to contact tracing. So one of the reasons that it might be good for us to gather data as a district on who is vaccinated and who is not is that our contact tracers would have that at their fingertips when they're doing the tracing, and they would be able to quickly move toward families that aren't vaccinated and require that quarantining if there's a known exposure. So we have folded that into our contact tracing process, the notion that if you are vaccinated, you don't quarantine.
Anybody else have any other questions? So I would just add then, with more generally again, with the lens of the CDC allowing everyone to have use a local lens when bringing this out. That's, that I don't have time to get a degree in public health. I don't have time to become a doctor. So I think it's important to rely on the people who spend their career studying these things. So first off, the experts in this field need to be the ones guiding our sort of decision making. And supplementary to that, one of the things that factors into, I hope, our lens is, at least as of 2 weeks ago, Washington County had the highest vaccination rate in the state. So most generally, getting kids back in every day, all day, is seemingly the top priority. And then whatever it takes to do that, we need to figure out how to do it. I also don't want, or my general sense is, I don't know that it would be valuable for us in the position that we're in to put people on the operational front lines having to be the vaccination police or the mask police or the so I appreciate very much the concept that anybody who wants to continue to wear a mask should be able to feel free to do so and feel supported. That's very, very important. But I'm reluctant for us to say the principal, the assistant principal, the teacher, the whomever has to be going up to a student and say, "Are you vaccinated? Put your mask." It doesn't seem like that's a productive thing. So yeah, so just speaking generally, I know we have the specifics that are yet to work out. My sort of sense is, if you can go into Winco and say, "I'm vaccinated, I don't need to wear a mask," that feels like it should probably be good enough for us. That's probably all I got. Yeah, that's enough for now. We'll have another opportunity to discuss this. I guess with sort of Director Allen's comment of being open to the concept of taking official board action, I'm open to suggestion on what people think is the best way to handle or manage that. I believe we all sort of understand that the work of government needs to be done in full view of the public. So with that in mind, if we don't have an opportunity to discuss this in front of the public until August 3rd, that seems a little late for us to be making that decision. Do we want to consider adding another board meeting? Do you want to take that topic up now with 6 minutes left in our current agenda? How would people like to approach the issue of providing guidance to the people who are supposed to do operational planning or taking official board action? As of now, so Nancy suggests let's discuss it in the next meeting. That would be August 3rd, just to be clear. If we don't do anything else, the next opportunity to discuss that is August 3rd. Monique, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I think that we should have another opportunity for discussion. I think that the public ought to be able to participate and have a discussion or their comments heard as well for our community. I definitely believe we should take into account all the things that you've mentioned and talked about. And I also think, though, that, like I said, we need to have the community's input. This is, as Lisa said, a controversial topic, and that parents should have the option to have some comments and feedback. Thank you.
Seth, you have your hand up?
I wanted to bring up, because from my understanding, and Travis or Mike, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but it seems like we aren't anticipating to have the plan fully complete until August 3rd or thereabouts, or it should be sometime after we receive our final guidance that it's going to take us to put together a plan. And while I definitely don't disagree with the idea of involving the public on this, I'm just curious about how we could get informed public comment on what our plan is going to look like before it's in a state that's accessible and readable. I'd be curious if we would be open to, once we have a plan, putting it somewhere where people can read it to give comment on it if we're hoping to access comment, or if we just need to accept that we're on a tight deadline and work around that.
and I guess I would, with no other hands up, I would add, that, so if we're discussing what will be the plan, so ODE guidance, and I know that on the previous slide, it didn't really indicate OHA, Oregon Health Authority, as among the agencies, but the ODE and Oregon Health Authority are working basically hand in hand. So to say that we're not taking input from the Oregon Health Authority would not be accurate. That what the Ready School Safe Learners guidance that comes out July 22nd will include input from the Oregon Health Authority. So the idea that our staff would have a week and a half essentially to put that together before the August 3rd meeting, that, Travis, is that overly burdensome, or does that feel like enough time?
No, I think the plan would be to look at the template that they provide for the operational plan, and then that would be the subject of our conversation on August 3rd. And what we've talked about internally with, between Casey and Michelle Brady and myself, who've been leading a lot of the facilities and the health and safety protocols, is that we'll use most of what's in our current operational blueprint to adapt that to the operation or the operational plan, which we're going to require. I was going to add, Mark, too, that usually with that final guidance, there will be a requirement to either put that forward to the board to make the board aware and the community aware of the plan, or have that be the subject of board approval. So we're anticipating that this would be an instance where ODE requires us to make the plan public via the board meeting and then submit it to ODE so that it's available to anybody in the state, like we did with the operational blueprint. And so if that helps you with this technical challenge of, are we hearing the plan and giving input versus approving the plan, that would be my two.
And that's really the question I'm bringing up now, is not so much the details of any plan or how the public is involved in the discussion or anything like that. It is, if we want to consider the idea that Director Allen brought forward, that the board would provide official approval as opposed to guidance, which I would suggest is outside the normal parameters of board work, but we are not in the normal world. If we want to consider that, today is probably the only time we have a chance to consider that, unless you want to just plan to take that up August 3rd. So I'm not opening, I really know that we need to discuss all of the concepts for public input and concept specific details of the plan. The question I'm asking the board to consider and discuss is, Director Allen is open to the option of us providing an official approval of the plan as opposed to operational guidance, which is what we would normally do. So for the board to discuss, what I'd like to hear is, are the circumstances so out of the ordinary that we should change what the concept of board work is?
Yeah, I think that we also need to be realistic about our timeline, and a September start date for schools and families needing to prep for what that environment is going to look like, and our staff needing to prep for that guidance, to have an engagement portion of this. If the board is to act in a voting manner on an operational thing, and then we also make it so that public has input on our logistics as a district and operations. I don't know that we could do a really good job of doing that in the time frame that we have, and to make sure that we're set up for success to start the school year with clear direction and guidelines for staff, families, and students. So my inclination is to, continue doing what we're doing right now and providing advice as we see that like we all did right now, asking questions, getting clarifications, and helping our staff through that process, and wait until our August date so that we can have, if there's really a lot of heartache over the direction and we have to have those conversations, those are going to be in a transparent way in a board meeting where our public can have access to that conversation and discussion. But I think that we need to be realistic about our timeline and the ability to do this work in that short amount of time.
The August 3rd meeting is planning to be held at the Administration Center, correct?
We had actually planned to do that at the new city facility on 53rd.
Ooh.
But if we can though move it back to just the boardroom here. One of the things that I'm wondering about is, you know, if we're trying to, you know, meet the timeline that's necessary, if we had a portion of the meeting, we would do, as we lay out the plan for the opening of school in fall 2021, we would lay that plan out in what would be more of a regular session at the end of the retreat time together. So as we lay that plan out, there would be the opportunity to get public input at that point. And that would require that we also have an opportunity for public input. So there would be an opportunity to do that. I do think that as we try and predict what that public input will look like, I can tell you that in my inbox right now, I have emails that say one thing, and then right next to it, there's one that says just the opposite. That so I don't know what that input's going to look like, but it's predictable that we will have all sides of the issue represented. We can easily build that into the public time, though, following the presentation of the plan.
Yeah, so my preference would be continue in advisory capacity and allow opportunity for public input at the August 3rd meeting. That would be sort of my preference. But I definitely want to hear from everyone because I don't, you know.
Mark, I am also in alignment with that thought as well. I think that the plans for fall, I mean, the way that we have acted in an advisory capacity and offering guidance to Mike and his team, I think that that should be how we continue even for how we choose to return to fall. So I am very much in alignment with just providing advisory guidance and then allowing for that public comment period possibly at a future board meeting. Because I do, you know, just as everyone has been receiving emails, I do think that it is important that our community is sharing their voices and have the opportunity to share their voices. And so that's how, yeah, that's where I'm at as well.
Nancy shared a question in the chat, and have prior board actions been considered advisory or mandatory? I would suggest that the nuance of that is lost on 120 characters, but
I can chime in, Mark, that when we did the blueprint the first time, the board did not act to approve it officially, according to my recollection. And Rose could correct me on this. We were advising, we showed the plan in its entirety. We posted it to ODE, but the board just learned the plan and gave input on the plan, as did a lot of other stakeholders. So I think that, okay, Nancy, that helps with your question. In other areas, for example, certain like the SIA grant, at the same time, the board did take action because that was required when the SIA grant was issued. So we usually take that as a requirement. We put it forward to the board when it's a requirement versus other concepts, other daily operational things, like you've said, Mark, we take input from the board as a staff and we act accordingly.
Anybody else want to add 20 cents, 2 cents? So Lisa, I think we hear your concern, and I if we all wanted to go that way, I would be happy to go that way too. But I'm also very comfortable with continuing on the path that we're on. So if you're okay with that, I think we can move on.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what we do. So that sounds good.
Okay, Mike, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I have this, and I think you summarized it well, but just make sure as we move forward that we will move forward with the board in advisory capacity. On August 3rd, we will present the plan with the operational plan. We'll have plenty of details for you there. We'll also have a communication timeline and process that accompanies that presentation, and we will have the opportunity for community input at that meeting. We will build that in. Following that, we will, following the discussion, the community input, we'll have the opportunity to wrap up with the board discussion during that same meeting and work towards coming to an agreement on what that plan looks like, at which point we'll be able to communicate that out to the community. Does that sound about where everyone's at this point?
Yes. And I'd also just remind everyone in the attendee list that in general, all board meetings are public. As I said, the work of government is done in public. And at every work session, the public has the ability to attend, but it is not a public meeting in the sense that it is the public's meeting. It's our meeting that we hold in public. And so during a work session, which would be most of the August 3rd session, and like today, there would be no opportunity for public comment, but the public is allowed to sit in and participate and view the meeting as much as they'd like. And then during what we call regular sessions, is just, the machinations of government in Oregon. The board chooses to allow for public comment, and I think we're making the decision to try to find a way to do that on the 3rd, even though it's a work session. We will build in some regular session protocols to allow for public comment with that. Is that about right, Mike?
Yeah, yes, that sounds exactly right. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our next agenda item is discussion time. We usually begin with our students. Don't want to put you on the spot first time out, but if you guys anything this year, so board discussion time, we'll cover a little bit in training tomorrow, but board discussion time is your chance to say whatever you'd like to say. All right. Seth, go ahead. Sure.
I'd just like to say I'm very thankful for the opportunity I have to work with everybody this year. I'm very excited to see what we can do moving forward. I'm glad that our first meeting could have some real stuff of real importance. It felt productive, and I'm glad to be here. So thanks.
Kaylee, you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sorry. We were kind of like in an awkward moment. Like, are you gonna go or am I gonna go? I just kind of like, I don't want to cut.
I'll call on you next time. I'm still figuring out how the board chair thing's gonna work. I'll call on you next time.
Oh, I just wanted to add, like, I think it's really cool because I stand in a unique position where I'm already seeing all these plans actually working. Because obviously, like I mentioned before, I'm already at the schools. And I just think seeing these plans working out and then seeing them on paper, I can see it because, I'm there, but I'm kind of a little bit confused on how people would see it. My number one concern for me, I would say, is I put myself in the position of like a family receiving this news, right? Because I know my mom, she gets a message and she was always asking me, what is this? What does this mean? Any paper or anything like that. She just asks me about it because she doesn't know how to read in English. She understands English, but cannot read in it. So my number one concern is for those families where maybe the student's a lot younger, maybe they just started kinder, or maybe they're going into first grade, second grade, and they can barely read, they can barely read and understand.
Kaylee, if I could just respond, and thank you. That's a great reminder, and I should have mentioned this before. One of the other things that we've been doing as we send out information is to put it in video form as well. So we will make sure that we do that. You're right, this is going to be incredibly important information, and there'll be some nuances to it that we want to make sure everybody understands. So we will make sure to include video as well.
Thank you both for jumping in right off the bat in your first meeting and providing excellent input. Thank you. We'll go around the screen. Director Allen.
I believe we usually start with Mike.
Oh, Mike, sorry. Right, that is Mike next, right? You're right. My apologies.
And I have said plenty today, and I've had an opportunity to share everything that we had at this time. Again, welcome to all of our new folks. Congrats to Mark and Nancy for your new positions. Look forward to working with you.
Director Allen, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so welcome to the new folks. I'm glad that you are joining us, and I'm really looking forward to getting to meet in person in just a couple of weeks on August 3rd with our our prior set of student representatives, at least we never got to have an in-person meeting at all ever. So this will be very exciting. And also welcome to Monique and Nancy. Glad to have you both aboard, and congratulations, Nancy. And Mark, our new chair, so far so good. I think Mark did a great job. So very nice, excellent work. Way to take over. And your first meeting on Zoom too. That's extra hard. So double kudos to you. And you guys are both going to do just a wonderful job.
Dr. Kim, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just want to say congratulations to Monique and Nancy, and also Kaylee and Seth. We're so excited to have you on board. That is all. Thank you.
Director Martinez, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, just welcome to all of our new members, Monique. And I just had a blink on Nancy's name for a second there, and to our new student reps. So glad to have you guys.
Director Lopez, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say good job, Mark, on your first meeting. And helpful tip is I'm always like trying to hold something in my hands to prevent me from hitting the unmute button and waiting for everybody else to speak before I get my turn, or do something to distract me. But I think you're going to do a fabulous job, and congrats, Nancy, on your also your election, and to both you and Monique as well for being on our board, and Kaylee and Seth. I'm super excited to have you on here. And this is it's a short meeting today, but it is a great example of the type of conversations and discussions that we get to have that shape what our district is, and making those decisions in a collaborative environment, and reaching consensus is definitely one of our goals that we aspire in this board, and making sure that everyone's voices is heard. So thank you again, and I am excited to continue this work with all of you.
Director Ward, do you have anything you'd like to add? Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the warm welcome, and I look forward to working with each of you in the coming years, and have a great evening.
Director Thomas, would you like me to just read what you put in the chat, or would you like to add anything else? Vice Chair Thomas, my apologies. Vice Chair Thomas would like to include, thanks to everyone for your support and belief in me. I am honored. Let's don't forget that it's imperative that we remind parents what all students all day means. Let's get ready to meet these challenges head on. And then she included a couple of emojis. I think they're smiley faces. My emoji game is not that strong, but I appreciate those who have strong emoji games. And she says, thank you to everyone. I'll just close with, I will forever be grateful to the leadership of Director Lopez. It's been an honor to serve with you. It's been great to get to know you as a friend. It's been, people have heard me talk about this before, but Erica has this amazing way of, what's the best way to put it? Correcting your behavior is wrong, but like when there's an issue that you may be forgetting, she has a very kind and gentle way of reminding you. So that it's very appreciative of all that you've done for us and for all you did for the district. And thank you to everyone for selecting me as your next board chair. I look forward to working with everyone. Our next meeting is August 3rd. We will see you all then. And actually I have a gavel. I can close the meeting. Oh, sorry. Yes. And I wanted to, Rose has an announcement to share as well. You just muted yourself, Rose.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to let the board know that Jacqueline Perez has, who is our other representative from Miller Education, has decided to step away from the board. And so she will not be serving with Seth and Kaylee. So going forward, we will be talking to the only panelists that we have left on the board that did the interviews, Mark, and we will discuss the possibility of replacing Jacqueline as soon as possible. Anything else, Mike?
What we would do then is we will work with Mark and review the applications and the interviews that took place earlier, and then we will bring a recommendation back to the board for replacing. So look forward to that at the August meeting as well.
And just for reference, my general instinct is to prefer to have 3 if possible. So much like our most recent set of board members, while Devlin had spent time in HOA, he was a student at Liberty. So I like the idea of, looking for the most qualified at-large applicant. So unless if people have any, text me or email me, email me if you have a problem with that, so that it's a matter of public record. Just a reminder, all of the email to your district address is open to public disclosure. So Freedom of Information Act request, everything we communicate through the school email is public. So, all right. Thank you all. I will see you August 3rd in person. Bye. Ooh, that's good.